My name is Adam Pearson. This is what many Americans would call a samurai sword. And while it is true that this sword was used by the samurai, the sword is so much more than simply a samurai sword. The sword is a symbol of Japanese culture. It is a symbol of the samurai code of Bushido. But the fact that it is known almost ubiquitously among Americans as a samurai sword is indicative of the cultural takeover happening right now in the U.S. For me, for instance, this sword has special meaning in my life, for I've loved the samurai ever since I was a little kid. I love the samurai so much, I undertook the study of Ijitsu so I could become the closest thing to a samurai you could still be today. And for those of you who don't know, Ijitsu is the Japanese art of swordsmanship. But mine is an extreme example, but for many Americans, Japanese culture has influenced their life in some way, shape, or form. Many Americans watch anime. Several big anime movies, such as the recent My Hero Academia movie, sold out almost instantly. In fact, they actually had to have more screenings simply so everybody could go and see the movie. How many people drive Japanese cars? How many people own Japanese cell phones? Like companies like Samsung, Honda, Kawasaki, Yamaha are almost universal in American culture. Everybody knows somebody that has one of these products. What I want to talk about today is how this takeover happened. How Japanese has become so dominant in our martial arts, in the products we buy, in the TV we watch, and in the cultural idioms we have. And I want to talk about what the benefits of this are, and how becoming more and more like the Japanese can help us in this contentious moment in our cultural history. I'm Adam Pierce, and this is a documentary about what the katana can do for you. The fleets of the East and the West, the two greatest naval powers of the Pacific, met yesterday in peace and amity. That's a quote from the Japan Daily Mail from 1908. 1908 was the date that Theodore Roosevelt ordered the USS Connecticut and several other ships visit Japan in what has been called the Great White Fleet. This visit, as retrieved from oldtokyo.com, was the first major contact between the US and Japan in the 20th century, and one of the events that would set the course for Japanese culture to begin appearing on the US mainland. Now, the next event was Pearl Harbor. Now, between these two events, Japan had grown into a formidable empire that needed fuel and needed resources, and they saw as the easiest way to get these fuel and resources was to bomb Pearl Harbor. This, of course, as many of you know, led to the US involvement in World War II and the ultimate surrender of Japan. Now here's where things gets interesting. Time magazine writes an article detailing the history between Japan and the US during the time of its surrender. Japan had surrendered unconditionally during this time as reported in the article, and when the US occupied Japan, the US had sole control over it. As such, it was inevitable that certain parts of Japanese culture appealed to the US. The US had fought against Japan for many years at this point, and certain aspects of their culture was impressed upon them, namely the warrior code, the martial arts they practiced, and many service members began to pick up Japanese martial arts, which had fallen into disuse during this time. Once the service members transferred back to the United States, they brought these martial arts with them. What they left behind was a sense of industriousness and industrialness that had gone by the wayside during the Second World War. In a sense, a transfer happened. The Japanese people began making cars and motorcycles, much like the Americans had before, and the Americans started practicing the old martial arts that had defined Japanese culture for so long. This leads us to the modern times and the latest introduction of Japanese culture in anime. Now, Japanese anime truly hit it big in the United States in 1996 with the importation of Dragon Ball Z. Since hitting United States shores, Dragon Ball Z has sold over 25 million DVDs and had become a cultural phenomenon. The success of Dragon Ball Z is echoed with My Hero Academia, an anime imported far more recently, becoming truly popular in 2016. The latest My Hero Academia movie sold so many tickets that, according to the film's importer, Funimation, they had to open up additional venues and showtimes to meet audience demands. Now, both of these anime are referred to as shonen anime by otaku.com, a website which catalogs a lot of anime-related news and activities. Now, other examples of shonen anime include One Piece, Rurouni Kenshin, Bleach, Naruto, all programs that hit United States shores around the same time as Dragon Ball Z. What unites all these films together is a common theme of adventure, of honor, of the unyielding warrior spirit. In effect, all these anime reflect to some degree or another the virtues found in Japanese culture, and specifically the virtues that hail from samurai culture. Now, the takeaway from all this discussion of Japanese martial arts such as Aijitsu, this discussion of Japanese history, this discussion of Japanese culture through anime, what can it benefit us? Well, the answer comes from the Japan Times, and that is with the concept of Bushido. Now, the Japan Times did a whole write-up on the way of the warrior, and I find it enlightening. The Bushido culture described in that article and in other places in the history of Japan could help us a great deal in America. It's an ideal of tranquility, of focus, of being driven, of being passionate, but most of all, of being honorable. Look around yourselves today. Do we have an honorable society? A society in which our politicians lie on a daily basis. A society in which we daily get into internet fights. Wouldn't it be better if we all had this idea, this fear of disgrace, that motivated the Japanese samurai? Now, the Japanese samurai obviously took it to an extreme where they would kill themselves if they would dishonor themselves. But I want you to ask yourself, I want to leave you with this question. Wouldn't it be a better place if we all took the things we said a little more seriously, we all took the things we do a little bit more seriously, and we actually cared about our own ideas of honor?